So, Jennifer Jensen, you come from a military family.
Yes.
How did that impact your own decision to enlist in the Air Force?
Well, growing up, we weren't exactly poor, but we didn't have a lot of money. So in reality, I knew that it would have to be military or work, so I chose the military.
Now, as we've been sitting here chatting before we turn the cameras on, you strike me as just a perfectly lovely young lady.
Oh, thank you.
But you told me that you were something of a wild child growing up, and so I'm curious how, when you stepped into that military environment, the very structured, rigid, disciplined environment, how did that impact you as someone who was maybe more of a free spirit prior to that?
Free spirit is nice. I think the military, I always say this, it definitely saved my life. It made me realize that if you want to be successful in life, you can't be all the time crazy. It's always good to be a little, out there, but the military definitely set me straight and taught me boundaries that I needed for real world experiences.
So you had a really interesting job in the Air Force. Talk about that.
I was a photographer, and when I deployed, I became a combat photographer. I served overseas, Iraq, Afghanistan, and while over there, I was attached to Blackwater, and I took combat photos for them.
Now, we were talking, as I said beforehand, I had no idea what Blackwater was. So for our viewers who don't know what it is, talk a little bit about what they do and then what your job was in relation to them.
So Blackwater was a group of contractors, usually ex-military, that perform security around our bases overseas. And they were pretty much our front line to our deployed locations.
And so while you were there, you were chronicling their activities along with your peers' wartime activities. Talk a little bit about that experience. What was that like, being in a war zone, and your job was to capture all this in photographs?
So my initial job when I went wasn't to do that. I was initially tasked to be a security personnel, and I got over there, and one action led to another, and they needed a journalist. So I stepped up because my actions would provide more security for our base. So I would go on Blackhawks with them on missions. I would go in MRAPs and do convoy duties, and working and secretly knowing that I was helping out my brothers and sisters in the military stay safer. That brought peace to mind. I didn't care what situation it was, that I was doing a good thing and it was helping them.
So in other words, your job was to capture what they were doing to make the case for these needed services and perhaps some more money in order to fund these sort of resources.
Exactly.
But it was very dangerous work. How did that impact you?
As a photographer, the military teaches you to deal with real life situations. We go through exercises, and even stateside, I would be in some sticky situations with, crime scenes and death scenes. So I was prepared when I went to Iraq, but it's still, scary, and you go through emotions that you never went through before, but it's all worth it because you know that you're defending the people you love back home.
As you said, when you were stateside, you had some assignments that were less than pleasant, things that you had to photograph. How did you deal with those sort of situations? Photographing death scenes or perhaps suicides or other disturbing images.
Mm-hmm. So the military teaches you, or tries to teach you, to view things like that through your camera, like you're watching a movie on TV. But that doesn't include the smells around you or the emotional awareness. So I have been through PTSD, still have it, still struggle with it every day, but I have been through the counseling for it, and I know how to cope with it, and I know how to get on with my daily life because of the counseling. So there's lingering issues, but I still think it was worth it.
So you've been able to make a real viable connection between the experiences that military members have and the need for counseling, which is something that you're engaged in now.
Oh, very much so.
And so you told me earlier you came back stateside and the military essentially said, don't unpack your bags, we're going to send you back. What was your reaction to that?
My reaction was, I have 6 months left on my enlistment. I'm going to get out and go to college. Because you can only do so many tours like that. And I praise the guys that go over and over again because they're strong and they need help when they come back. Just like I did.
And so you just decided you'd had enough of those sort of wartime experiences.
Yeah, I loved being a photographer, but I wanted to take pictures that made people happy rather than sad.
So now you work for West Texas Counseling and Guidance.
Yes.
So tell us what you do there.
I am the Veteran Outreach Coordinator, which is the person that goes out into the community and lets everybody know that we have a veterans program. We provide mental health counseling for veterans, active duty, reserves, and their direct family members, including their kids. It's a really amazing program, and I really, really love my job.
And this is a fairly new program then for West Texas Counseling and Guidance.
Yes, it's been around for a little over a year.
So how did your own wartime experiences, your military duty, how did that help shape your decision to become a psychological counselor?
So I know the struggle of admitting that you need some help to get through it. And I let all my veterans know, like, I know how you feel because I've been through it. I went through a year of it, actually. But without that, I would be a hot mess still. You know, like, I wasn't able to go to movie theaters without feeling comfortable. I would take my daughter to Disney World and I would want to leave immediately after getting there. Like, those are things that veterans and active duty members need to know. Like, you're not alone. All of us that have been there, done that, know exactly how you feel, and we're here to support you through everything.
And so you feel like the therapy that you got after your military career has helped you?
Oh, very much so.
And how does your military experience, you think, benefit you now in your job as the Veterans Outreach Coordinator?
My military experience helps because everybody that comes to me is either a veteran or some kind of, you know, dependent of a veteran. So I can relate to them on the military side, and I can relate to them on the spouse side, and I can also, my older generations, I can relate to them because my dad had been through it too, and my grandpa. So I've been there, done that for quite a number of things. So
you have a sort of an immediate connection with them and some credibility. How important is that when you're trying to help someone and get through to them, if you will?
Yeah, so it does help because as veterans, we like to stay together, and we share that bond. We talk about our war stories or, you know, like the funny things that happened to us. So having that bond, I think, is so essential to where I'm at now, because like when I went to counseling, my therapist had no idea what it was like to go to Iraq or be in the military, so I kind of distanced myself from her. But the military members that come see me at West Texas Counseling and Guidance, they know somebody there they can talk to has been there, done that.
Are there specific mental health issues that military members face that perhaps the rest of us in the general population typically don't?
I don't want to say that we experience anything in particularly different than civilians. I could say PTSD, but you know, traumatic events for everybody are different. So a traumatic event for a military person could be getting hit by an IED, or for a civilian, it could be getting in a car crash. That's traumatic, or losing a loved one. That's traumatic. So I think all the same mental issues mirror each other. They're just different worlds.
You mentioned it a little bit earlier. You're not only a veteran, you are a military spouse. Your husband is stationed at Goodfellow Air Force Base. Does your job also involve assisting military spouses and children?
It does. I'm actually a member of the Goodfellow Spouse Club, and they all know what I do, how I can support them, and they come to me quite frequently, whether it's for themselves or for a friend or for somebody's child, because we see all of them. And we have a state-funded grant right now that financially supports all of them as well.
And so I assume you have that same sort of relatability with them that you do with veterans, because you are a military spouse and you see some of the issues that they face.
Very much so.
And so what are some of those issues? What are things that might be particular to military spouses, because we have so many of those in our community?
Yeah, so for military spouses, it's from what I've experienced, and you don't see this while you're military, but their job is more important than yours. And it's hard to admit that, because you want to have your own career, you want to have your own self, but in reality, country comes first to them. So their duties, they can't always take off to take the kids to the doctor, or, go to a baseball game because they have an exercise they have to do. But also deployments are hard, especially for newer spouses that are not used to it, because you're pretty much turning into a single mom while they're deployed. So I see all these things, and I support the spouses that I see struggling. And we actually have spouse support groups at West Texas Counseling and Guidance for that specific reason.
So it sounds like all these services that you're now offering there are really important, given the fact that we are a deeply military community.
Yes, I think it's a wonderful program, and we support, just since I've been there, we've supported over 250 people in the military.
You are also, Jennifer, active in the Concho Valley Women Veterans Organization. Tell us what that group does.
So the women's organization is a group, there was a lack of female support, because usually when you think of a military member, you think it's a guy. So they started this women's group in order to show the San Angelo community that we are here, we do exist, and we want to support one another. And there's not a lot of that out there, as sad as that is. Females serve time too, so everybody needs support, and that's what they're for.
So through that organization, you volunteered in Project Poppy. Tell us what that is.
So the Poppy Project is actually a project that one of my counselors started, Jan Lentz. She has gotten veterans together and created ceramic poppies. And what she plans on doing is creating 1,000 poppies and putting them out at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. It's just going to be a field of red poppies, and the red poppy is a symbol of remembrance for military members. So we've been taking it to nursing homes and 65 and older communities, and it has been phenomenally successful. And we're at 800 already. So,
wow. So
yeah.
when you say you take it to a nursing home, for instance, do the residents there actually help make the poppies?
Yes.
Is that what happens?
So we get a sign up, and they list, the purpose of it and everything like that. And mostly spouses, because the guys are like, oh, it's arts and crafts. But the spouses come and they do it. We take all the clay, the stamps, everything they need. And they really enjoy themselves.
I can only imagine. You also volunteer with the Daily Bread Soup Kitchen and with Holloman Elementary's PTO. Is there something in particular that when you're looking to contribute your own time and talents and treasures, is there something in particular that you're looking for whenever you're looking at volunteer opportunities?
What I look for is just people that are in need of support. So the PTO is, everybody supports the PTO, but so like my children, I always support my children. And the soup kitchen, I work with homeless veterans all the time, and that makes you feel good, knowing that you're helping, give them something to eat so that they can get through the day or go look for that job. That makes me warm and fuzzy inside and makes my life feel worthwhile.
So now you are pursuing a master's degree in counseling. Why was that important to you to pursue that?
So I started this job and I didn't expect to fall in love with it as much as I did, but just helping my brothers and sisters from the military get through their tough times has been a blessing. And if I can do that and I can actually sit there and give them the therapy that they need, I think that's my life goal now, is to help them and give back to them.
Jennifer, tell us how you define leadership.
I define leadership as someone that supports those that need support, and somebody who is not afraid to get their hands dirty, and being able to recognize that everyone's equal. Although some might look at you as a leader, you shouldn't act differently. You should just do what you feel is right.
Is there a particular leader who you feel like has inspired and helped shape who you are?
Very much so. As cliche as it sounds, I think my dad. My dad was a 20-year Navy veteran, and while he was in the Navy or just working, it was his personality. People were drawn into it. He was positive when others were negative. He was strong when others were weak. And he molded relationships so that, like, for instance, he's been retired now for 15 years, but his Navy buddies still call him. And my dad has taught me, like, you get your hands dirty first and you be the person to lead and get in there first. And he doesn't sugarcoat things either. He's very realistic. So my daddy, as cliche as it is my...
So did you tell him you're one of the 20 under 40 honorees this year?
I did. And his reaction was, "Are you sure?" But he was super proud. And probably the first time he ever told me he was proud of me was when I graduated boot camp, which was like tear-jerking moments. And so he told me he was proud of me for this because he knows how hard I work and helps veterans. So,
Jennifer, congratulations on being one of this year's 20 under 40.
Thank you.